welcome back everyone to the Detroit Tigers franchise here on MLB The Show 18. So we are now at the trade deadline here for season number 3. The first 2 seasons we would probably be trading some of our good players for prospects, but this year it's a little different. We're 69-40. We're playing some really good baseball. I believe last year we won 71 games, so we're 2 wins away from matching our total last year, and that's 2 months ahead, which is pretty good. We are currently number 1 in the AL. I almost said AFC. But actually, no, we're not. The Astros are number 1 in the AL. They've won 10 in a row, so I guess we're now number 2. We've been number 1 most of the time. That's why I thought we were number 1. So we do need to get some good players if we want to jump over that hump, I guess, and become the number 1 seed. I would say we could use some pitchers, both starters and relievers. I did some searching and I found some players that I think we could potentially be interested in. So starting with starting pitchers, there were some very good options like Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, but they're all free agents at the end of the offseason, and I don't want to trade a lot for potentially a 2 to 3 month rental. So the 2 players I thought could be good additions, both in the NL West, starting with the Colorado Rockies, and we see Jon Gray, 28 years old. He has the hair, which is certainly a bonus. He has been injured a little bit this year, so he hasn't pitched as much as some of the other players. 92 innings, his ERA is in the low 3s, which is pretty solid. He only has 2 years left on team control, so he's going to be a free agent next offseason. But it says he only wants $3.7 million, so he's probably not going to ask for too much next offseason, which I think certainly helps us. The only reason why the Rockies may not trade him is they are currently I believe 2 games back for the NL wild card, so maybe they're going to try to give a wild card. But they do have plenty of talented pitchers below him: Tyler Anderson, German Marquez, Kevin Gausman, Kyle Freeland, Antonio Senzatella, Mike Leake, all of whom can hold their own in the rotation. The other one from the San Diego Padres is Dinelson Lamet. I hope I said that right. 27 years old, 88 overall, from the Dominican Republic. I remember he made the All-Star game because he actually got the loss, which is kind of funny. He's 9-7 with a 2.91 ERA, and he's on a very good contract. He's going to be making $4 million for the next 6 years, which means we have him locked up and we don't need to overpay for him. So that's very good. He's also pitching very well, and the Padres aren't doing well, so maybe they are willing to give him up. But at the same time, they do have a lot of young players starting to blossom, like Manuel Margot and Royce Lewis and Luis Urias. There's a bunch of other young players that they have, so maybe they think that Dinelson Lamet is still in sort of the timeline of all those young players, and he's still going to be really good once the Padres become a good team. So the Tigers will be throwing offers at both Jon Gray and Dinelson Lamet. Let's see if they can get either. So starting with Jon Gray, this is the offer that we would do if we choose to acquire him. It is going to be easier to get Jon Gray than Dinelson Lamet, which makes sense because Gray is a year older and he's not pitching as well. But we will be sending Luis Medina, who is really solid, 20 years old, 76 overall, but we really have some better players in their rotation, like Franklin Perez, Alex Faedo, Matt Manning. Don't forget about Vaughn Crosby. So we don't really need Luis Medina. Brad Keller, he's pretty solid. He's in the majors, but he hasn't really been cutting it as for long reliever, as his ERA has been in the 5s, which isn't really good. And Daz Cameron, a solid center field prospect acquired in the Justin Verlander trade. So I think we would be giving up a decent amount, but I think it would be worth it for a really solid starter. This would be the offer if we were to get Dinelson Lamet. We would obviously be trading Luis Medina. He is the main package in this scenario. And then we would have to throw in Enrique Nunez, which isn't really something we want to do. He's only 19 years old. He's already a 72 overall. He hasn't played great in the major leagues, but I think that's a little too much for a starter. So I think that Jon Gray trade makes much more sense. And that is the trade we will end up doing. So Luis Medina, Brad Keller, and Daz Cameron are all headed to Colorado, where marijuana is legal. So I think those 3 are probably jumping for joy. And Jon Gray will be headed to the Detroit Tigers, 28 years old, 87 overall. He's pitching pretty well this season and will add to a very solid rotation with Michael Fulmer and Franklin Perez playing like Cy Young caliber players, and Alex Faedo and Matt Manning are also there. We will be making another trade as the Cincinnati Reds will be trading 34-year-old reliever David Hernandez to us for Matt Shoemaker and Pedro Arroyo. I doubt I said that right. Pedro is basically just a throw-in player, but the main piece is Matt Shoemaker, 33 years old. He has not played in the majors yet, as he's just been stuck in AAA. I am sorry, Matt. I am sorry, you do not deserve this. But this trade makes sense for both teams, as the Tigers do need some extra bullpen help. And the Reds, who are currently fighting for a wild card spot, while they are losing a really good reliever, they're also getting a really solid starting pitcher, as their rotation is not the greatest. Outside of Jared Eichhoff, Aaron Blair, Lance Lynn, Amir Garrett, Sal Romano, all four of these guys have ERAs over 5. So I think this makes sense for the Cincinnati Reds to add an extra arm in the rotation, and we get an excellent reliever and an excellent veteran presence in David Hernandez. So far, I think the Tigers have done a very good job this trade deadline, as they have upgraded their rotation as well as their bullpen. But the one thing that they are missing is that spark plug off the bench. The Tigers have an excellent lineup, but don't really have any good bench hitters, as they got Prince Fielder to come out of retirement. That hasn't worked. He's hit like 200 or something. Enrique Nunez hasn't been great when he has started or come off the bench. And then John Hicks as a backup catcher really isn't that great. So the Tigers will be sending Rufus Nguyen, Jason Krizan, hope I said that right, and Kenny Wilson to the Brewers for Eric Thames. The Tigers are getting a really solid hitter who is known for only being good in April of 2017. And the Tigers aren't really giving up anything important. So those will be our trades. John Gray, Eric Thames, and David Hernandez have all been added to the team. The lineups have not changed, as Eric Thames will just be coming off the bench. But the pitching rotation of the bullpen is what really is changing. So John Gray will be placed at that number 3 spot. The only thing that's somewhat concerning is we only have righties in our starting rotation. But we can make it work. All 5 of them are really solid. And we did trade Brad Keller, so we don't really have a long reliever. So I was looking through relievers with somewhat high stamina. And someone I came across was Jordan Hicks, who is already on our team. So that works out. David Hernandez will be a setup man. If Felipe Rivera starts struggling, then Hernandez will move over to the closer spot. And other than that, that's going to be it. We're going to play John Gray's first start next episode, which is against Minnesota. So that should be a fun one. I'll do all that off camera. I'm out. Peace.
Yo, hey, man!